Welcome to the Gary Neville podcast from Anfield, where we have seen, Gary Neville, a really, really good game of football, haven't we?
Yeah, really good. I think that before the game I thought what happened... Let's start again. Before the game, what I thought would happen did happen, in the sense that Liverpool just further ahead in their development and their journey as a team and as sort of a group of players, more experienced, and that Chelsea would find it hard today. But I think that I was hoping Chelsea were going to do well in the sense of the game, and I think they did. I think they played some really good football. I think we know where their deficiencies lie, probably. And I don't really want to call out Nicholas Jackson. I think he can be part of a very successful squad that can do well for Chelsea. I just think if they had a world-class striker in front of him and he was, say, the second striker, that would probably more align with a team that then could go on and potentially win a title in a few years' time and catch Liverpool up. Again, at the other end of the pitch with the goalkeeper, and then just that maturity and the growth of the players, because obviously some of them are young. So I think there's a lot to work with. They lost the game. The two games I've done this season, they've lost. The first game of the season against Manchester City, and this game now against Liverpool. But I actually thought there were good things in both games, which gives me encouragement for Chelsea. And the fans at the end of the game, the Chelsea fans were all clapping behind that goal. So I think that tells you that they liked a lot of what they saw, and there's some encouragement. There really is. The substitutions, because they've got so many players, and they're all, you've got lots of players, haven't you? So maybe there is an element of Maresca which then feels like he has to make substitutions, but I just think maybe the quality, maybe the performance deteriorated with the 5 substitutions. I thought Chelsea were at the best with the starting 11. Maybe you could argue that, Sancho going off at half-time, one way or the other doesn't really, count for much, but I just felt as though maybe the substitutions didn't help them, and Liverpool were untroubled and really managed and controlled the game well. They weren't at the best, but they demonstrated their experience, Liverpool, today, and in the end I think deserved the result just purely because of that.
Obviously, over the last fortnight, international football's been the topic, England in particular, and I was excited to see today those 3 for Chelsea: Palmer, Madueke, Sancho, but Curtis Jones actually on the other side. What a performance from him.
Yeah, Liverpool have a habit of getting the absolute maximum out of their players, and you look at that midfield of Szoboszlai, Gravenberch and Jones, and if you said that was playing against Caicedo, Fernandes, Lavia, Palmer, you'd say Chelsea should really dominate the game there. They should, better players, cost more in the transfer market, more fancied by the top clubs. Liverpool tried to sign Caicedo and Lavia, remember? But the 2 players that they tried to sign weren't as good as the players that they've ended up with, who were less money. And that is down to the stability in the club. Obviously, the performance of Jurgen Klopp last year as a coach, but also the performance of Arne Slot since he's come in. And Curtis Jones has epitomised that today. Swashbuckling performance, all action. You think about the 2 in midfield that were playing there, Gravenberch and Curtis Jones. They didn't really play like a holding midfield 2. They were dynamic. They went and got the ball in wide areas, in deep. When they were deep, they went and basically sort of then shifted up the pitch and made runs forward. It was a really good performance from him. He was involved in everything, in penalties, in goals. And that's what coaching is. It's what football should be, that, through stability. What Liverpool have done is through stability and giving players confidence. The opposite of Chelsea in some ways, where they've signed a lot of players and maybe undermined players who are already in the club, settling down a little bit now, I know. But Liverpool have been the absolute opposite. They've missed their target in the summer that we're going to bring in midfield, and Curtis Jones might not have been playing today. But the fact that he is means that he's played at a really high level, and that should give Liverpool and particularly, I suppose, people in their boardroom, in their sporting director and their sort of other people who choose the players, they've got patience. It's an unusual quality in today's game, and I know that from owning a club myself, that you can be impatient. So they have patience here, and there's a stability. Klopp leaving, the back 5 still in place, gives them that real foundation. And then in midfield, you've got basically 2 or 3 players, 4 players maybe, to choose from, who individually you would say, would they get in the other sort of top teams? But when you watch them play as a collective, they're so willing. They're like sponges, I can imagine, on the training pitch, taking everything in, and the collective of them together is better than their individual parts, and that's the sign of a really good team and good coaching and good work. And Curtis Jones there, I thought, was outstanding, best player on the pitch.
And actually their only defeat this season, Liverpool, came off the back of the last international break, and perhaps it says something that this time they were able to rest their 3 South Americans for the majority of the game. And we've done Curtis Jones, but I mean, Cody Gakpo instead of Luis Diaz, there feels as though there's an alternative everywhere. Even at the end of the game, Gomez for Alexander-Arnold.
Yeah, well, we've seen that before from Jurgen Klopp, haven't we? At a point whereby maybe they're sort of under the cosh a little bit, defending deep, that Gomez is preferred. Up front, we know they've got fantastic options, and they've got 5 or 6 there that you know can play across the front line, and they can always sort of change it up. So if Jota goes off like he did today, or Gakpo plays for Diaz, Núñez comes on, they're all of a high level, they're all a threat. Salah's the one constant that holds them together. He gets more and more important. I was talking before the game about Cole Palmer. Salah's shocked me in the sense of his just consistency and his reliability of his goals and his assists over such a long period of time. When he first came to Liverpool, you'd never have imagined he'd get to this sort of superstar level that he has, in this world-class level. And Cole Palmer's doing that now 15, 16 months in. He's got another 6, 7, 8 years to go to get to that level whereby he can then be deemed as being sort of a superstar world-class player like sort of Mo Salah. It's when you do it over that period of time, and he's a great player for Cole Palmer to look at, but he holds that front line together in terms of his composure. Salah, he just hangs on this right-hand side, his strength, his quality, and Liverpool have got a lot of players who have done a lot. They've won Premier Leagues, they've won trophies in cups, they've won Champions Leagues, and that gives you a confidence and an authority, and I think that's helping Arne Slot settle in at this club.
So quickly, before we move on to the other 2 of the top 3, just a sort of final overview of Chelsea, a read of where Chelsea are at in your view.
A lot better place than they were, I think, last season. I think there feels like something's building. Looks like the players enjoy it. I go back to that first game of the season against City on Monday Night Football, which is the one that I did at the start of the season. The night after, I actually took Tottenham out of my top 4 and put Chelsea in it, because there was something I saw against City, even though they lost, that I liked. And I feel the same today still. There's a lot to work with there that you can like. Now, obviously, that they are a little bit raw at both ends of the pitch at times, and you feel there is development, but you know that they're young, and I think that the owners will be a lot happier. I would say at this moment in time, there's some promise. It looks like they're believing in sort of the system and the coach and the way in which things are going. I think the fans look like they're a lot happier with it as well. And I think today they showed really good courage to play here at Anfield in the first half. This is the toughest away ground to come and play. And I think they demonstrated that they could come and play and take the ball. They do still make mistakes in certain parts of the game, but then that's every single team. I would reiterate, the 2 most difficult positions on the football pitch are centre forward and goalkeeper. They're the 2 most influential positions also on the football pitch, and if they have someone world class in those positions, I do think they can really be a threat to the top teams in the next couple of years if the rest of them can grow and continue to improve.
Okay, so the biggest story of the weekend, actually, never mind this super game we've just seen, is probably Arsenal losing to Bournemouth, which from a neutral perspective is lovely, because we talk forever about the unpredictability of the Premier League. Apart from obviously having a player sent off, where were Arsenal's shortcomings?
Well, there was a big debate, wasn't there, a few weeks ago when they played against Manchester City, which I contributed to when they sat so deep against Manchester City, and they obviously at the end conceded that goal. But I think that they've had 3 games this season where they've dropped points, and 3 times they've obviously had a man sent off. What I would say is yesterday and against Brighton, I still think my expectation of Arsenal in the way in which they are, obviously what they've got to do is deal with the discipline issues. They get too many players sent off just generally, so that's got to be looked at. And I'm sure Mikel Arteta now will say, look, this is going to cost you if it carries on, so let's attend to it properly. So that's the first thing to say. But secondly, if we go down to 10 men, you've got to still go and win. And I think Roy Keane said this a few weeks ago, and at the time, it was again after the City game, which I think that's the one game where you could have some sort of sympathy. But I think Roy was talking about it in relation to the Brighton game and saying, go and win with 10 men. I do genuinely believe yesterday against Bournemouth at 0-0, with 10 men, they should go and win that match. And I believe they have to go and win that match, and they can't lose that match. So for me, that'll be something that I feel after that game. You can lose any match in football, we know that. But I think that's the most disappointing thing, is that they've not gone and won the game against Brighton. They've not gone and won the game against Bournemouth. And I think they should be, with the quality that they have, still be able to win those matches. So 2 things. 1, don't get players sent off as much. That sounds really easy, but sometimes teams go through periods where they do get players sent off and it costs them, and you've got to deal with it and you've got to stop it. The second thing is, if we do go down to 10 men, we've got to go and win. You've got to go and win. Now, City, take that one out because it's Manchester City, but the other 2, Brighton and Bournemouth, as good a team as Brighton are, and your way at Bournemouth's a difficult game, go and win the match. take out of the game the fact that you've gone and won, and you've basically won with 10 men, and everyone thinks, whoa. So, look, I think on a general note of Arsenal, I'd say still very early in the season, early enough for them to recover, early enough for them to still be really dangerous and win the league, I believe. But then, I was disappointed with them last night. I think they should be disappointed with themselves.
In mitigation, no Saka, no Ødegaard, no Timber.
I get that. But then we're talking about playing against Bournemouth, aren't we? And they're a good side, I know. But, they've got squads of 20 to deal with Champions League football, to deal with a couple of injuries. We know that basically players will be missing at certain points in the season. Liverpool have played today against Chelsea without Alisson, their world-class goalkeeper, without Diaz, without McAllister. They're 3 players that they played without today that would be really sort of, if you like, in their side. So, that happens for me. I don't... Saka always plays as well. He always plays. You're going to miss him. If you said you're going to miss him at least once, twice, 3 times in a season, then Bournemouth away would be one of the games you may say, well, okay, well, that's fine. We've got a squad to be able to deal with it. So, yeah, I understand that. But for me, I would expect Arsenal to have done better with 10 men yesterday. And obviously, I think the sending off was right. So they've got to deal with that. I think it's the first time Saliba's ever been sent off, isn't it? So, that happens in football. I'm not going to criticise lad for getting sent off. It's just that it's happened 3 times now in 7 or 8 matches.
As a matter of interest, what did you think of the decision to send Saliba off?
I thought it was the right decision in the end. It was a long way from goal, but the goalkeeper, I think, speaking to Mike about it before, actually, I think once the goalkeeper starts to backpedal, there's an acceptance that he's not getting the ball, and then the striker's going to get there. So I think that's the problem. I mean, the mistake from Trossard's a bad one. Maybe hasn't been talked about enough. The pass back, you know what I mean? The one that gets left short. So for me, these things happen, but it's how you react from it. And I think Declan Rice's interview after the game was that, they'd fought hard and they'd worked hard, but turn that hard. We know you work hard. I mean, the Arsenal team, they do work hard. They're reliable now. They're at a really good level, and I think that Mikel Arteta's built a team that we can trust. But not getting points yesterday, not winning yesterday. You can't just, we're down to 10 men so we can lose. That's not the way in which it is. If you're a top side, which they are, go and win that match and go and win the game against Brighton.
I don't know how much of you saw of it. I didn't see much, but Manchester City at Wolves.
I watched quite a bit of it.
Well, clearly it was a scare. So, what did you see?
I mean, Wolves, to be fair, I have to say I've watched them a couple of times and I thought they're in real trouble. I think that they're really struggling. But I think Gary O'Neill will be... I think he'll be enthused by today. I think he'll be happier with what he saw, but I think he'll be absolutely devastated at the end. I did agree with the decision that Bernardo Silva wasn't interfering with the goalkeeper on the John Stones header. So we obviously came up here, we watched that, didn't we, with Mike, and we were looking at the screens and we were thinking, is he in front? He's clever, Bernardo Silva, he has that little lean into him, but then I think he leaves and the goalkeeper has a chance to reset himself. And then I think that the ball just basically, obviously goes past the goalkeeper. It's a great header from John Stones. But it's 2 important goals from John Stones, isn't it, in the last month? Incredible that, I always feel, maybe they're that type of team. They've built up that sort of feeling about it. Remember the goal last year that they scored at Newcastle late on? It was Oscar Bob, wasn't it, I think? And I remember watching that in January or February, whenever it was that they scored that goal, and thinking, here we go again, they're going to win the league here. It's moments like that, even this early, which make you just think, because they're the moments where you think, well, if City don't win that game late on, then they dropped 2 points at Wolves, which I would not have expected. So I think they'll be absolutely ecstatic. Well, they were. We saw them at the end celebrating, didn't we, the City players and Pep Guardiola and the fans over on that far side. It's a big win for City because, look, we know they're brilliant. We know they're fantastic. They've got a great manager, but still coming out off the back of international football, having been there at United all those years and getting everyone back together. I always remember Sir Alex would say, get your heads are full of mince when you come back from international football. You've all been listening to different instructions from different managers in different parts of the world. You've all got on different planes, come back at different times, and you're all basically disconnected. And so you'd come back maybe for the Friday morning. I know City is playing on a Sunday today, so you have an extra day to prepare, which is important. But sometimes you can get back on a late Thursday or a Friday, and you can end up basically just training maybe one session together before the match. And he would say each time that, it's difficult. He would recognise that in us, and he'd say, look, I'm relying upon you today to get your heads right, because he knew that there would been distraction. There has been distraction of another set of football tactics and style and teammates for the previous 10 days. So, yeah, I think that what City have done today is get over the line, which is what they do. And, well done to them for that.
Yeah, and probably one of those we'll remember in May. If they're the ones walking up to pick up the trophy,
You
we'll
do.
remember that Wolves game.
You do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, there was a mention, I think, today, would these two teams win the title? I don't think so. But what Liverpool are doing defensively at the moment is interesting. But I'd like to sort of assess it at Christmas. I still think that they're short. I do feel like they're short. I feel like Chelsea obviously are short. They're not going to win the league. I think that Arsenal are the only team that can really sort of take on City. But you've got to be in front of them. You've got to be close to them, and you can't afford to fall too many points behind.
Which makes, and let's finish on this, throwing it forward, next week's game, Arsenal-Liverpool, an absolute monster. Yeah. Arsenal, of course, without Saliba.
Yeah, without Saliba. But again, I'm not. We cannot. We had the excuse, didn't we, a couple of years ago when Saliba wasn't playing in the final matches, and sort of that was seen and accepted that he's a big loss. But you've added players to the squad to be able to deal with that. You can't be one player away of having a one-match ban and thinking, basically the level can go from here to here when you're looking to win a title. You have to remain consistent and reliable if you do get an injury. We've seen City without Haaland and without De Bruyne for, big parts of seasons, and they've still got by. We've seen them get by, and, I know that they're a sort of machine City at this moment in time, but I've got a lot of confidence in Arsenal. I've got a lot of love for the way in which they've sort of developed as a team over the last 2 years. When they came here 18 months ago, whenever it was, when they came here and they found it really difficult and it started to fall apart for them in that title running, and they froze in that last part of the season, there's no doubt about that. They're a different set of players, and they're a different level and a different level of belief than where they were. And this is now next week whereby we can't be talking about, so-and-so's not playing, or he's not playing. We're not interested. We're not interested. There's been a lot of money. There's been a lot of improvement. Now's the time to go and show it. And they're still in with a chance, a big chance. It's very early in the season. So next Sunday, big test for Liverpool, and a big, obviously, not question about Arsenal, but a big, question about Arsenal without Saliba, because he seems to have been ever present for like an age now.
And that'll give us something to talk about a week from now.
Yeah,
Look
looking forward
to it,
to
Gary.
it. Thanks,
Thank you.
Peter.